Boss Racing.
Happy New Year, everybody. Hope you guys are having a good 2025. We're here in my garage right now. Behind me, you'll see the Boss A90 Supra, which is in hibernation after that crazy off at Buttonwillow. Honestly, I've been just way too lazy to even crack into it. I have to fix the bumper. I have to kind of fix the mounting brackets for the splitter, but I don't want to do that right now because I'm super lazy. Something fun that I wanted to do today, which is a first for me, is that on Instagram I did an AMA, an Ask Me Anything. I know a lot of people have questions about Time Attack, this car, Boss Racing, a bunch of different stuff really. I just thought that I'd open it up in 2025, just answering any questions that anybody has. So if you're ready, let's go ahead and crack into it. So Zol_Berg says, what was your first platform to learn and the one you advise people to start with now? I'm guessing that this person's talking about platform of car, which to start with. Honestly, it's kind of whatever you have in your driveway. I've always felt like you can track anything, and I've seen it happen. I've been on track with Priuses, old Hyundai Elantras before they got cool. It kind of depends on what you want out of the car and goals for yourself. In terms of, you know, if you were to start scratch, maybe get into something that's kind of cheaper, like a Miata Civic 350Z. There's a lot of different platforms out there. It kind of depends on what you like. And obviously, whatever you drive, you have to like and the looks of it. So yeah, just do a bunch of research, see what everybody's tracking on, and go from there. And shout out to Three Spoke Coffee, my companion for this AMA. Dividing by Zero asks, what is the least favorite track, tire, mod that you made then changed? And least favorite car? Least favorite track. So this is actually an opinion of mine that I share with some other friends, but it might be an unpopular opinion. Recently, I have not really liked Streets of Willow, which is kind of funny because that was the track that I cut my teeth on. I think I've been at Streets of Willow like the most out of any other track, and that's how I got my start. That's how I kind of learned car control, because it's so violent. I mean, the track is so violent. But recently with this car, it being a very heavy car with a lot of horsepower, it doesn't flow well for my car. I don't think it flows well with lower horsepower cars either, but it's really fun because like you're thrashing the car, and I think it's fun for that. But if I had to pick my least favorite track, I think it would be Streets of Willow. Least favorite tire, that's gonna have to be the Vulcan 615Ks. They're a 200 treadwear, but they're old, super old, and they just don't grip up like the Nankang CRS version 2s that I'm currently resting my elbows on. There's a lot of really good options now, and I would say that the Falcons aren't quite up to snuff with the Super 200s. My least favorite mod. What would be my least favorite mod? I don't know if I have one. I think everything that I've done to the Supra so far has netted positive. There have been some parts that I put on the car, but they were prototypes, so I knew what I was signing up for and I was testing them. So I wouldn't really say that the ones that didn't work out were my least favorite. They still had a good learning experience. So I'm not sure if I have a least favorite mod. Least favorite car? I don't think I have that either. So my very first like sports car, well, my very first car was a 240Z, which is pretty crazy. Unfortunately, I sold that because I just couldn't keep up with the cost of it while building out the Supra and the EG. It was just impractical. But after that, I got a 2015 Subaru STI, which was super, super cool. I actually really liked that car. I thought I was going to track it more. I took it to Big Willow once, and I think Auto Club Speedway once, and I thought that was gonna be my track car, but the thing with Subarus is they like to blow up, and I didn't want that to happen to me. So I sold that for an Audi S3, which I had my midlife crisis way too early, because that car was That was a weird choice. It didn't like to turn. I took it to a few autocross events and it did not like to turn. But in the few autocross events that I competed in against like these really seasoned competitors, it did really well. If I had to pick a car of mine that I liked the least, that was probably it. DDRR Luna asks, do you believe negative comments labeled as constructive criticism are useful in driving videos? Kind of sounds like somebody talks smack to you and you didn't like it, which, I mean, I empathize with that. I post my driving videos on my Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, like all the time. And some people have a lot to say about it. But honestly, I used to get really mad at it, but sometimes people are just trying to help. Most of the time they're not, they're just trying to flex on you. But a simple click on their profile will tell you if they know what they're talking about or not. A lot of people who like to yap don't even have cars. It's pretty nuts. They watch F1 once and then all of a sudden they're an engineer. But in the few instances where a proper racing driver or a coach is giving you constructive criticism that might feel pretty negative, sometimes it's helpful. I've had a few of those happen to me and they were right. Alethis asks, the way you record from cameras, and in parentheses, POV, two methods, I love the style. Well, that's easy. Just buy Boss Vision and you can have something that looks exactly like my POV. Johan Spec asks, favorite brake fluid and why? Right now I have Castrol SRF in my car and it was fine. Before that I had Motul 650, which was fine. Before that I had 600, which was fine. Maybe it's just me, but I don't really feel the difference between all of them. A lot of people claim that they know exactly which one is in the car. If the car stops good, it's good with me. So, but SRF is what I've got right now. A90 Christian asks, best cooling mod for the Supra. Been dealing with heat soaking on track. That's kind of just something that happens with the Supra and the B58. It being a forced induction car, you deal with a lot of heat soaking. My car still experiences heat soaking, but in terms of like the best mods that I put on the car that lowered the temperatures, it had to be the intake manifold from CSF, the Race X, which helps with IATs. You kind of just have to do the whole cooling package, like the heat exchanger, the two aux coolers. I know that there's a mod that some people do where they add another inline water pump to just like circulate the water more. I haven't done that yet. I think that's the next thing I'm gonna do, but heat soaking sucks, and that's kind of what happens with the Supra. You can't beat on it for a whole session, especially if you have the car set up like mine. You can't beat on it the whole session. You do have to cool down, and even then, you know, sometimes the engine just is heat soaked and you gotta pull it in. Good coffee. Not Merrick's asks, what's a realistic budget you would set yourself if you only had one car? Okay, so budgeting is actually something that I'm really bad at, and I'm gonna make another video pretty soon, right after this one. I'm gonna go through every line item of the Supra right here behind me and talk about if you wanted to build a Supra right now and match the performance, everything on the Boss A90 Supra, what would it take? I'm gonna do that video, and honestly, I've been inputting these line items and costs into a spreadsheet, and it's absolutely horrified me. So hopefully you guys go through the trauma with me or something, I don't know. STC Charles, my good buddy Charles, says, Tigi always asks, that's his daughter, what is Uncle Mike doing today? That's super cute. Because Tegan, his little daughter, was with us at GTA Finals, and she was the life of the party. Hannah, my partner, was obsessed with her. And there's so many videos of her with Charles. She's the one who gave me the sub 150 sticker. She was always giving me thumbs up. You know, she was the constant in that weekend. So maybe Tigi is my good luck charm. Who knows? Tallboy Racing asks, what upgrade produced the biggest time gain? You know, it's always been incremental. I think that it all comes in stages in terms of what shaves off the most time in your lap times. And I think early on, it's gonna have to be brake pads, tires, brake fluid, because usually if you're in a stock car, you're boiling the brake fluid, and something that a lot of people kind of gloss over, but it's actually really, really important, is your seat. The seat, the harness, the steering wheel, all the things that, you know, are touch points and you're actually touching in the car make a huge difference. For instance, your seat in a stock car, if you don't have the bolstering to keep you in your seat, you're just flopping around and you're bracing yourself with your knees, you're holding onto your steering wheel for dear life, and it doesn't really promote a very comfortable ride, and you're very tense, and that actually eats up a ton of time. Get yourself a good seat and harnesses so that you are locked in, and you're going to be a lot more comfortable in your car. Aside from that, every time I put on a new mod, my time just kept going. Coilovers, huge. Good dampers, huge. Aero, massive. I'd say power mods, obviously, because once you're putting down the power in the straights, that's just time gained, or time lost, I mean. Recently for GTA Finals, all the mods that I put on the car shaved off about like over 2 seconds off my PB, which is a lot. A lot of that had to do with the upgraded power that I was running. I went from a stock turbo to a pure 650 turbo, and we gained 120 horsepower, so that's a lot. Jersh asks, what tools are essential for track days? Ideally an 8.6, so trunk space is limited. Thank you. This is kind of a thing that is hard to say, because if you have friends who bring a lot of tools, then you're good. I bring a ton of stuff with me to track. In this, actually, I actually fit all of it. You saw it in the last video. I fit all of it in my car. But if you have a friend like me, you can always borrow my tools, and you don't have to bring much. But the absolute essential tools that you need to bring are torque wrench, obviously the appropriate socket for your lug nuts. You need to bring a tire gauge so that you can monitor the tire pressures. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people just kind of drive to track, then send it without even taking out air from their tires, and their tires just get super ballooned up and they have no grip. They're like, why am I sliding everywhere? Well, it's because you're not managing your tire pressures, and you need a tire gauge for that. Aside from that, you need a jack, because you'll never know if you need to take out your wheel. So a jack is pretty necessary, I feel. Fluids, gas, oil, brake fluid, and water. You don't need much, but you do need the essentials. Daniel Drives asks, when did you go from I have a street car that is fast to I want a full commit track car? Well, I feel like I've always had in the back of my mind that this thing was always going to be a time attack car. When I first got into this platform, I didn't really have any goals of just having this be my daily driver. I knew what I wanted. I wanted to compete in time attack. So it was really early on, but I think once I got the ball rolling with mods and I just couldn't stop, I think I fully bit the bullet and said, you know what, this is going to become really unruly, and it's going to turn into a race car real quick. Kuba79 asks, will you do more mountain run videos? The answer is absolutely. Mark at Mastermind Speed has my EG right now, and we're going to button it up real quick. You can expect some VTEC in the mountains real soon. Silent Attack 86 asks, how are you able to manage your business and filmmaking and etc.? I guess what you're asking for is how do I balance all aspects of my life while still doing time attack and running this car? I'll be honest with you, I manage it very poorly. Ever since I started this thing in 2022 up till the end of 2024, my life balance was kind of imbalanced. I really gave myself fully to the goal of winning GTA Finals in this thing. Ever since I started tracking in 2022 up till November, when I did win Street Class, I had no balance. That's the thing. I work in film, and as a freelancer, you never know what your schedule is going to be. I didn't balance it very well. I just went straight from working to working on this thing, and it was kind of a mess. I think I might do a video on that because that was kind of hard. Op is a Ferret asks, at what point did you decide that you needed to get an instructor to improve? This is a little bit interesting because there wasn't actually a moment where I decided, you know what, I need an instructor. And that instructor was Michael Ryan Johnson, professional driver and coach. There was an opportunity for both of us to work together where that kind of came about really organically. But the moment I realized, oh, I needed his help and this guy is the real deal, is when we looked at all my data, we looked at all my videos, and he pointed out so fast, like boom, there, boom, there, boom, there. This is what you're doing. This is what you have to be doing. All this stuff. I was like, whoa, okay, this guy's the real deal. And all the speed that I've gained recently, I would equate to the time that I've had with Michael as a coach. And I mean, he's the real deal. I can't say it enough. If you think that you need coaching, or if you're stuck, you're plateaued, and you need to break through and get to the next level, do a few sim sessions with Michael. He'll point out, you know, your faults and help you grow. And he's not one of those coaches who coaches you with negative reinforcement. I hate that. There's this weird trend in grassroots motorsports with all amateurs where dudes just like to puff out their chest and they like to coach through negative reinforcement, saying, oh, you're slow there, you're shit there, oh, you suck, you got to get faster. It's like, I guess that works for some people. It didn't work for me. So having somebody who is there to provide you with support and positive reinforcement and get you to where you want to be going without having to break you down as a person, that's a win. And MJ is that guy. Just Incredible asks, what do you do for a living? I work in the film industry. I'm a cinematographer, and I mostly work on commercials. I started out in music videos, and before that I was in film school. But right now my bread and butter is commercials, and you probably have skipped a lot of them on YouTube. Probably this very YouTube video. CB28 Sharks asks, tell us about how Boss started, what it is, where is it going? So Boss Racing started as kind of just like a gag. It's like a joke. My girlfriend Hannah came with me to a few autocross events in that Audi S3 that I had before. And we were just talking about like, oh, like wouldn't it be cool if we co-drove a car? And we walked around and we saw a Supra at one of these autocross events, who's now my friend. And we walked around it maybe like 10 times, looking at all the angles of it, and she was the first one to say like, oh, if you got this, I would co-drive it with you. And that was the only green light I needed. So I sold the S3, got the Supra, and I was joking with her that like we need like a team name, like a fake team name. I've always wanted to be part of like a racing team, but I knew that it wasn't in the cards for me, so we made it up. We went with Boss Racing. The way the name Boss came to be is because her nickname with her girlfriends was Boss. And my nickname in film school was Boss. And we learned this like 2 months into dating, which is kind of crazy. Obviously, we called it Boss Racing, and that's kind of how it came to be. And what is Boss Racing? Honestly, I'm still trying to figure it out. It's right now what it feels like is, you know, this is my journey in time attack and racing in general, and I'm taking you guys for the ride. And it's been really fun so far, meeting everybody and talking to everybody and just showing my journey from the little tadpole that I was before in this like stock Supra to what it is now. It's been really fun. And where is it going? Wherever it'll take us. I'm just kind of riding the wave and seeing where it goes. You know, I'm just here for the ride. Official Start Racing asks, what was the process like getting your first sponsor, and how did you know what to ask for? Well, my first sponsor ever was Sawbelt, which is kind of wild, a big company like that. It was honestly super messy the way I asked. I was talking back and forth with Adam, who's my contact at Sawbelt, about sizing with a seat that I wanted. We went back and forth, finally figured out which seat I wanted. I thought, you know, while I had him on the phone, I was like, why don't I just shoot my shot and ask him if he's willing to sponsor me in my journey? And at this point, there really wasn't much built up on Boss Racing yet, but I told him my goals for myself. I told him exactly what I wanted. I wanted to compete in time attack, and specifically global time attack. I told him my strengths and weaknesses. Being in the film industry and making content really quickly and easily is a huge plus. He saw the value in that, and we kind of went for there. And I had no idea what to ask for, honestly. And this is something that everybody should know when you're talking to a sponsor, is there's going to be an ask on both sides, and you're going to have to know exactly what you're asking for, and they're going to have to know exactly what they want in return for that. And again, I think I might make a video about this because it's kind of complicated. Arwentz2 asks, is there anything you regret doing to the Supra? And how do you go about testing setups? Is there anything that I regret doing to the Supra? No, not really. I don't really regret anything. Everything had a purpose. If there was one thing I could do or tell myself early on, it would be to take the phrase "buy once, cry once" very seriously, because you can cheap out on stuff all the time with this car, and any car really, any platform. Unfortunately, you get what you pay for. Early on, I kind of leaned towards the cheaper stuff, thinking that I'm just going to use cheap stuff and outperform everybody on like the top shelf stuff. And that's kind of not how it works. I wanted it to work like that. I really did. But you know, these top shelf parts are good. They're really good. And in the grand scheme of things, they're not that much more expensive than the cheaper stuff. So if I were to do it all over again, I would save my money a lot longer and go for the top tier of everything if you have the budget for it. Obviously, the budget comes into play. If you don't have the budget for the top shelf stuff, go with the cheaper stuff. For the most part, the cheaper stuff will take you like almost all the way there. But if you want to push for that little tiny gain that sometimes is a huge gain, go for that. And how do I go about testing setups? I'm actually really bad at that. I'm really bad at testing setups. Sometimes I won't even touch the damper settings on my coilovers because I'm just so comfortable driving the car. I just go out and drive. In terms of a racing driver, an amateur racing driver, I am probably as dumb as it gets. There's the monkey like banging the cymbals in my head when I'm driving, and I should probably fix that, but for right now, I'm not very good at setting up the car. I'm good at putting my foot all the way to the ground. Figu 5.0 asks, what would you say are some key essential mods for a beginner driver on track? I think a lot of these mods are more mental than anything. I think you have to go into your first track day with an open mind. Some people go into their first track day thinking that they're going to tear it up, that they're going to be so fast, they're going to graduate from beginner and go to advanced immediately. Leave your ego at the door and do as much learning as you can. There's a lot to be said about starting slow and building yourself out. I think that's the number one thing is essential for a beginner on track. But in terms of mods, I think, yeah, we talked about it in the other question. You know, brake pads, brake fluid, obviously helmet. You don't need gloves right away. But you don't need much to get on track. Just leave your ego at the door and make sure that you're safe and you keep everybody around you safe on track for your first time around. NoFS Ricky asks, what do sponsors want/require out of you the most? And do you reach out to them? I do reach out to the sponsors. Same in my professional career, finding agents. I was always the one to reach out. Some people would always tell me like, oh no, the agents will reach out to you when you're ready. I was always the one to make the first move, and it's the same with sponsors. And I always have presented them with a very professional deck outlining everything that Boss Racing is, my strengths, my weaknesses, what I can offer them. And it's a pretty complete deck full of every piece of information they need. I might share it with everybody at some point, but we'll see. What do they require out of me the most? They honestly don't require much out of me. It's kind of a thing where I'm very unique in the sense that I can create really, really good looking content really quickly, really fast, just because this is what I do for my day job. And that's really, really important to them because media is really expensive to sponsors and companies. But ultimately, the thing that is consistent among most sponsors is that they've always tell me to just do what I keep doing. Just be a good ambassador for them. Don't paint yourself in a negative light at all. Be kind to everybody and represent the company in a good light. And that's all they really require. Bellon asks a two-part question. How did you get into time attack and tips on becoming a better driver? How I got into time attack. So time attack is super unique in terms of a motorsport because you're not racing against other cars, you're racing against the clock, and more importantly, you're racing against yourself. I think that's what I liked about it the most. I grew up playing golf. That was a very mental game, and you're always playing against yourself. I played in high school, and like you were obviously trying to do better than your competitors, but you're mostly just trying to be better than yourself. I think that was really attractive to me about time attack. More specifically, when I was looking for my next car after my Audi S3, I saw this guy, Jackie Dang, on YouTube doing time attack in the Supra and just whooping everybody. And I thought that looked pretty fun. So that's kind of how I got my feet wet into time attack. Tips on becoming a better driver. Well, it's kind of hard because everybody's a little different. But I think the first place to look at is, you know, if you have a Solo 2 or a Garmin Catalyst, just look at your data all the time and see where you can improve. If you aren't in a position to get a racing coach, just ask the faster drivers to sit in with them or give you some tips because sometimes they have a lot of good things to say and sometimes they don't, so just be careful. Jacob Lung asks, how do you find the time to do all of this while still having a job? Well, it's very unique because I work freelance, so my schedule isn't Monday through Friday. It's kind of whenever the job calls for me. So that's kind of the only way I'm able to do this. If I didn't work freelance, I don't think I'd be able to do this as much as I do now. Mike Stansworks asks, how much money do you make? I'm sure he gets asked this a ton. My answer is not enough because I have to take a chill pill in 2025 because this shit was way too expensive. Three Spoke Coffee asks, is it bad to be attracted to the homies? No. Supra 82mm asks, A90 or S2000 for a track car? What are the Supra's weaknesses? I can't speak on the S2000 because I've never had one and I've never driven one at speed. I feel like I've always wanted an S2000, so I got the really fast S2000. I feel like the Supra and the S2000 share some qualities in terms of, you know, where the weight is over the rear wheels, how long the hood is. They're completely different beasts because from what I've heard, the S2000 is a very loose car and it likes to break free from you. And the A90 is kind of the same thing. Very, very tail happy. But the difference is the A90 is tail happy, but you could ride it. It's not very snappy. You don't get a ton of snap oversteer, but with the S2000, that's something that a lot of people experience. The weaknesses of the Supra, I mean, it's heavy, but it's light for a modern car. You know, this car weighs 3,400 with me in it. That's not too bad for a 620 horsepower car. I would say the weaknesses for the stock Supra would just be the dampers. They're not good enough. Just toss those in the trash and get yourself a good set of coilovers and you'll have so much fun. Perhaps the most annoying weakness of the Supra is the fuel starve that you get. You have a saddle type fuel tank in the back and on, I think it's like sustained right hand turns, heavy G's, you just get fuel cut. And the solution is a surge tank and an upgraded fuel pump, which is not cheap. So that, I think that's actually the biggest weakness. CSDL asks, how did you start tracking your car? So when I first got this thing, Hannah and I were co-driving it, and it was kind of just like a fun thing to do. So we would enter in the events that my buddy Dwayne was throwing for Club Racer. And we would just kind of do laps, and it was nothing ever serious. We were just doing laps and laps and trying to get better. Before that, all the way back to my first ever car, my 240Z, I was doing SCCA autocross, just not seriously. It was just something fun to do, just to stretch its legs. That car really sucked, by the way. It had a heavy V8, 350 small block, and it had like chopped springs and shocks, I think. I don't know. The thing sucked. It looked cool, but it was a terrible performance car. So that's how I got my feet wet into performance driving. Did some track days with a 2015 Subaru STI that I had right after. That was a long time ago. I think it was 2015. But I'm going off into a tangent. How did I start tracking my car? I kind of just went out and did it. If you really want to do it, just go out and do it. It's not that scary. And if you go out and do a beginner day with SoCal Drivers Club and their specific beginner day, then it's like way easier. Because when I started, and when a lot of people honestly start with some of these track days that have a beginner group where they just do parade laps, it's kind of scary. They just throw you out there, good luck, tell you the flags and the passing rules, and just everyone will figure it out. Sometimes that's not conducive to a very safe and fun track day. It's fine most of the time. It's fine like a majority of the time. Some people need a slower start than that, and SoCal Drivers Club Beginner Day is the perfect way to get introduced into tracking safely and slowly with professional racing coaches. Percy Muscuti asks my full vlogging setup. Well, actually this isn't my full vlogging setup. This is a nicer camera. This is actually the camera that I put in the car on my roll bar for in-car footage. But I typically just roam around with a DJI Osmo Pocket 3 and a microphone, and that's it. It's not that hard. Mr. Bigfoot asks, what are all the consumables and their cost per track day on a dedicated track car? That'll change, but for me, the consumable, there's so many consumables that you're actually not thinking about. So let's say that I tow my Supra to a track event. Obviously, there's the gas for the truck. And I always carry 3 jugs and a full tank in the car, in the Supra, of ethanol. So there's that. And you also have to think about your consumables in the form of your brake pads and just everything that the wear and tear, your tires. So it's kind of hard to figure out how much you're spending in terms of the degradation of your tires, the degradation of your brake pads. But the obvious things will have to be the gas that you're putting in the car and the tires that you're going to inevitably have to change. And these bad boys, the Nankang CRSs, they're not cheap. They're cheaper than AO52s, but they're still not cheap. And, you know, these get maybe 4 to 5 track days before I have to change them, which hurts. Not Sean Lee asks, what made you fall in love with the motorsport world? How do I start and where do I start? What made me fall in love? So in high school, my friends introduced me to Initial D, big shocker. And I fell in love with that anime. I fell in love with the drifting. It snowballed. It snowballed out of control. I went from Initial D, then I was like, I gotta know more about street drifting. So I started watching Video Option. And then I learned about Keiichi Tsuchiya. And then I learned that he was this incredible racing driver. And I started looking at his professional career. Then I started looking at Time Attack, and it kind of all snowballed, but it all came from Initial D. I didn't even really like cars before Initial D. My dream car at that time was like a Golf, a Volkswagen Golf, just to get me from point A to point B. And no shade to any Golf owners, but that was, I can't believe that I didn't care about cars. And now, look at me, I'm obsessed. I'm absolutely obsessed. How do you start in motorsport and where do you start? Well, the way you start is just by going out there and driving. So I would say go to your local HPDE, do some laps, and just keep building yourself up. The harsh reality of it is if you didn't start at a very young age, there's very few chances that you're gonna be a professional race car driver. I don't think I'm ever going to be a professional race car driver. But these guys start super early, starting from karts and then working their way up. And, you know, these guys who start early, like Nicky Hayes, Jaden Conwright, these guys are super, super fast, and it's in their DNA now. And for me, I have to fight every single survivor instinct on track for me to go fast, because everything in my brain is telling me to slow down, but I have to keep pushing to go faster. But that's not to say that you can't. There's so many different ways to get into racing on the professional level. My buddy, MJ, Michael Ryan Johnson, actually is making some videos on that very topic. So follow him and he'll tell you all the secrets. C. Liggett asks, I run with my visor open. Any plans for a chin-mounted Boss vision? So yes, it's in the plans, it's in the works to do a chin-mounted one, but chin-mounted is like so weird. I've tried it. I've actually been racking my brains around creating a new system for helmets where you can put like one of the Insta Go 3s like in your helmet. But for the most part, it's like kind of hard because every helmet's different. In my Arai GP7, I tried putting the Go 3 up there and it was like really resting on my eyebrows. And the last thing I want is something falling off in someone's helmet if they hit a hard bump. And it's kind of hot on my forehead, honestly. And usually the chin mount, it's like it's too low. I think there's a way for me to get the camera really close to your eye line where you won't be able to see it. Like just right now, try it. Like you don't see your nose. Like that's how Boss Vision works. Like you don't see Boss Vision because it's like right here and you're looking straight through and it kind of disappears. It's like the halo in F1. Maybe if I bring up something chin mounted kind of in your eye line, you won't see, but the problem with that is I think I'll be blocking your speedometer down here. Even though you're able to look past it, there are very important things that are right here in front of you. And by mounting the GoPro to your visor and on your forehead and with the camera above your brow, you don't care about anything up here. Like you're not looking at your headliner. Long story short, I'm gonna try to make one for all of you that run your visor open. You'll just have to wait a little longer. All right, so that was my first ever AMA. What did you think about it? Was it helpful? Was this a complete waste of your time? I don't know. Let me know in the comments below. And maybe if this is popular, this is something that I can keep doing. I really want to make it a point to answer any questions that I can. I think there's a huge amount of gatekeeping in the community, and I would love to break through and break that cycle. It's not that serious. I'm totally willing to answer all questions that I can. There's no secret sauce with this. You can go to Simply Racing Motorsports right now and Serge will give you the entire formula to build a car just like this. You can go to MJ and get professional coaching and he can make you super, super fast, like just how he worked on with me. You can get the tires that I run on. You can get the wheels that I can run on, all the parts. With Boss Racing, it honestly wasn't never my intention to educate anybody because I honestly feel that I'm not in the position to educate anybody because I'm learning all this myself. However, I've learned along the way that there are a lot of curious people. And if I can help any of you get on track, then I would love to do it. I'm recording a few videos after this one about Boss Racing in 2025, what that looks like, where the EG has been, and what I'm gonna do with this thing. I think from 2022 to 2024, I've been on the gas pretty much from the start. I had a goal that I set for myself that I thought I probably couldn't achieve, but in 2024 we achieved it, of winning GTA Finals Street Class. Now that that's done, there's this kind of clarity that I've had for myself where I realize that I haven't let off the gas ever since I started this journey. Now looking back on it and taking the time to reflect, you know, I do need to reassess what's important to me. And like I said in the AMA, I gave myself fully to this thing. This thing being myself as a time attack competitor and the Boss A90 Supra. I gave it a ton of time. I gave it a ton of effort, money. Coming into 2025, I have to figure out, you know, what I find important And the truth of the matter is there's a lot of scaling back that I'm gonna have to be doing, but we're gonna talk about that in a different video. And to wrap it up, I hope everybody has a wonderful 2025 and a great start to the new year. I'm hoping that everybody gets their PBs this year and goes faster. And if you haven't been on track, I hope you get on track, because there's nothing like it. So I'll see you at my next AMA if I do one. Cheers.
Boss Racing.